Identifying as a fat person is not only empowering, but it creates a community that other people have based on similar things that they're going through.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reflections by Lily, my brand new YouTube channel. As you can tell, I'm really excited today because I have a guest with us today. She goes by the name of Serena Nangia, and she is also going to be a part of our body positive series that we have on our channel. So I'm super excited about it. And here is some information about her. Serena, if you just want to say a quick hey.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. And for all of you that don't know about her, she's a young professional interested in public health, international relations, nutrition and dietetics, and advocacy. And she graduated from American University with a bachelor's in international studies and a minor in Spanish language studies. She founded the club Rebel at American University, and in one of our more previous videos, we had the current president of Rebel, do a little chat with us. And as you know, in this club, they talk about disordered eating and body image issues and raise awareness for that. And then she currently works at Caroline Sarah Ventures, a woman-owned company where she coaches individuals with eating disorders. So I'm super excited to have her with us today, and I cannot wait to get to discussing. I actually attended one of her events last week, which was called "How to Be an Ally to Fat People," and I was super excited to be interviewing her today to learn more about that. So, Serena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm always so excited to talk about all these issues and my personal experiences, so I appreciate it.
Yes. Let me start with what inspired you to make the event How to Be an Ally to Fat People?
Sure. So I met the founder of Yes to Consent, which was the organization that I did the webinar through, and we met over. She did a workshop on fat phobia, and so she's definitely been an inspiration for me. Her name's Izzy Abraham Ravison, and when they set out something to do with like send in whatever you want to do about your anything to do with body image, sexuality, sexual education, I was like, what's the best thing that I can do to bring awareness to issues that I care about and also something that I'm knowledgeable about. And so, as we're going to discuss in a few minutes, I identify as a fat person. So, I wanted to see like how can my friends, how can thin people be an ally to fat people? Because a lot of the times, especially my friends are like, I want to do more. What can I do to like? I know that life is different as a fat person, and I was like, okay, so here are the steps.
So, thank you for explaining why you put that event together. So, I really appreciate that you put that event together so we could really talk about that. And so, if she has any more events, guys, I will definitely, if you follow my Instagram and also follow her Instagram as well, which we will put a little annotation here, or this will also be the description
Yeah.
down below. You can learn more about her events because they're incredible. So I now want to start a little bit more about, you mentioned that you identify as a fat person. Why do I have not really heard that before about like, oh, I identify as a fat person. So why do you find it important to identify as a fat person, and like what does that mean to you?
Sure. So you can't really tell by the the face video here, but yeah, I identify as a fat person. I'm a larger person, and part of that is just finding my community. Identifying as a fat person is not only empowering, but it creates a community that other people have based on similar things that they're going through. And when you feel like you have a community, you feel like, oh, I'm not in this alone, and I'm not imagining everything that's happening to me as a fat person. Like there are real consequences to it. Systemic as well as just generally being ostracized or stared at just by the way that you look. And yeah, I identify as a fat person because it's not an insult to me, and I take on the word because it's empowering. And so the fact is that I am fat, and I see nothing wrong with that as a descriptor. Um, And so, yeah, that's really the simple. idea of it rather than taking on a word that somebody else gives to me. I'm able to avow a word to myself, and that makes it powerful and not harmful. So if anyone calls me fat, I'm like, yeah, I'm fat. Like I already said that. So it's less powerful of a word if you take it on, and it's taken many years to get there. Um, but I'm really happy to be where I am because it makes me a happier person, and I'm not as worried about what people think of me.
That is really incredible to hear that. And as you mentioned, like fat, like you said, you don't take it as an insult, and really, like as you mentioned, like it's a descriptor term. It shouldn't be taken as an insult as it is just a word used to describe how someone looks. So it's not describing their identity, but of course, society puts this negative connotation on um being fat that like it became an insult when really it was just a word used to describe people. So yeah,
Yeah,
and what do you think like the implications of like the societal like negative connotation towards being fat? Where do you think that comes from? And obviously it's really detrimental, so how can we address that?
yeah, that's a really big question. When it comes to the word fat, and the way that people use it as an insult, it really has to do with morality, moralizing the word fat, moralizing being fat. If you think about what fatness means as far as what people consider it to mean, they relate it to gluttony. Um, one of the seven sins or whatever, and overindulging and not caring about yourself, and a lot of the reason people have hatred or misconstrued perceptions of fat people is because they see them as lazy. They assume that they don't exercise, that they don't eat well. Whereas the reality is that fat people can be all sizes based on a number of factors. I personally work out 3 times a week. I eat a balanced diet, and I'm still fat, and I haven't lost weight or gained weight in what since high school. So um, it's also related to like people who have chronic illnesses, people who have eating disorders. All of these issues and many more are impact the way that our body takes on or loses weight, and a number of them we can't control, or they're really hard to like eating disorders. They're really extreme mental illnesses that need to be addressed, but they're based on what's happening inside of our minds, not really what's happening on our bodies. And so, if we use the word fat as a descriptor and not as a an insult, it just makes more sense. But unfortunately, the way that our society is today, the word fat and fat people are demoralized based on what people see them as.
Yeah, you know what? That's really unfortunate because, like you were talking about, there's a bunch of stereotypes that are put upon fat people that like that they're lazy and that they don't go to the gym, they don't work out. When in fact, like and as you described in your personal life, like you go to the gym 3 times a week. That's more than me right now. Like that's more than me during majority of the year besides the summertime. And you said you eat a balanced diet and you still identify as a fat person. Okay, I do remember hearing something, um, and someone was saying, it's the woman from The Biggest Loser. I think her name's Jillian.
Jillian Michaels.
Yes. And she was saying
Very
something in
probably.
an interview along the lines of, like, if you have a slow metabolism, eat a little less, yeah, and work out a little more, like, kind of like find that balance based on how your body works
Yeah.
to keep you at like a more BMI ideal size.
One thing I wanted to say from before was that one of the big things also within the fat community is that even though I personally work out every day and like eat a balanced diet or whatever, um, like it's still okay to be fat no matter what your your habits are. Like, it's wrong to be demoralized based on what you look like, no matter what your habits are. And if you're not my doctor, if you're not my doctor, not if you aren't a doctor, if you're not my doctor, you have no business talking about what is the most healthy for me. As far as Jillian Michaels, she's extremely problematic in the fat community and in general the community of people who want to see people succeed and be healthy. The recommended BMI, first of all, is based upon an archaic system that was made by a thin white man back in the day. And it's not, it only measures your height and weight, and it doesn't measure any external factors. It doesn't measure your habits. It doesn't measure anything. So it's really not a good system to determine weight by. And in fact, I believe, I'll have to look this up, I believe BMI was not meant to measure health. It was just a system of deciding like what your weight was compared to your height. And in addition, as far as BMI, it uses the words like overweight and obese. And if you think about it, over what weight? Like, what? I'm overweight, but over what weight? Like, who decided this factor? And do they know anything about me? Do they know my habits? Do they know like my life? No. So I strongly disagree with the BMI system, and I do not ever use it. And in fact, when I go to the doctors these days, I just ask to be blind weighted, so like I don't find out how much I weigh, because in reality, the number doesn't mean anything to me. How I feel in my body is really important. And as long as I'm able to do the things that I want to do, and my doctor says you're able to do the things you want to do, and you don't have any extreme problems based on anything that you're experiencing, I'm happy where I'm at. And then as far as eating 3 meals a day, I, as well as many other people who work in the eating disorder field and body image field and fat and body liberation fields, we tend to use the intuitive eating system, which means it's complicated, especially when you have an eating disorder, but I'll explain. Essentially, intuitive eating is listening to when your body's hungry and listening to when your body is not hungry. So I may eat 5 little meals a day, or I may eat 2 meals a day, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And it's not a set structure. And in fact, the 3 meals a day is a good system. If, for example, a lot of people with eating disorders don't have aren't able to be as mindful or intuitive because their mind has tricked them into not having, like, they don't know when they're hungry or they don't know when they're full. So the 3 meals a day and the kind of set plate of what people eat is something that I believe, I'm not trained as a nutritionist. It would be really awesome if you brought a nutritionist on to talk about this stuff, but that's what I've heard from people that nutritionists and people in the eating disorder use, or in the eating disorder field use to counteract and kind of reintegrate people with eating disorders back into the non-eating disorder world.